that cannot join this morning session, then they can also basically listen to what we are discussing today. Okay, so first thing first, next week we will have online quiz 2 that will run from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Monday. So you can take it at any time before 9 to 11. And then once you start the test, then your time will be limited to 25 minutes. And there will be 15 questions, okay? Mostly is on the heat transport, but there will be 1 or 2 questions also on the momentum transport and also the mass transport. So you basically need to prepare things before you start the test. I mean, look at the instructions and then prepare your empty paper sheet for you to basically do a simple calculations, okay? And then you want to basically go again and refresh your concepts on this on the materials related to what you have learned from the week 1 until this week, basically. Okay. I think 25 minutes is quite plenty of time already, and there will be 1 bonus questions as well. Therefore, because we have this online quiz 2 on Monday, so the drop-in session will be moved to Tuesday from 9 to 10 a.m. in the morning. Okay, and then actually the assignment 2 is supposed to be distributed this week, but then I think I have made it accessible to everybody since last week. And then I think problem one statement is quite similar to the assignment 1 problem, especially the problem 1. Then that means that you should be able to tackle that questions quite confidently. The only remaining problem that you need to work with your friends is the problem 2 statement, which requires you to basically check the expression and what the questions that is asked. I will discuss this thing shortly also in our drop-in session this morning. But before I do that, then I will go into the I will go briefly into the mass transport problem, the first example. Okay, so basically to make sure that to refresh everybody on this. Okay, so let's go into this one. Okay, everybody can see my screen well? Okay, so let me know if you have any problem in looking at the screen that I share in here. Okay, so basically I don't want to go into from the beginning. I just want to basically go and reiterate the most important part of the mass transport. All these equations you can go and derive by yourself. Okay, but the most important thing is that we basically use the same conservation law that we have been using for the momentum transport and for the heat transport. Okay, except in here in the mass transport we have a quite simplified shell balance in here. Okay, as in the momentum transport and the heat transport, all the problems are solved by making shell balances. Okay, in this particular case for the mass balances, we make it for 1 or more chemical species over a thin shell of solid or fluid that represents your system. And then this equation 22 in here basically represents most of the examples that we cover in this mass transport. So rate of mass of A in minus rate of mass of A out plus the rate of production or consumption as well of mass A by homogeneous reaction. Okay, so that should be equal to 0. There will be a differences later in terms of the reactions. So for example, if in the reactions is occurring in the bulk fluid, on the bulk fluid or the bulk part of your system, then the reaction term will appear in your differential equations or your conservation law balance. But if your reaction basically occur in the specific part of your system, such as in the surface of the catalyst, then that productions or consumption term will not appear in your shell balance, but it will appear in your boundary conditions. So that will be clear later if you go through my slides and my notes. Okay. So as in all the cases, once you make these things and you figure out all the terms in there, then you let the thickness becomes infinitely small. Then after that, then you will get the differential equations for the mass or molar flux. Okay. And then once you get that, the first ordinary differential equations, then you can substitute your Fick's law. Okay. Then you will be able to get the basically the concentration profile of your particular problem. Okay, the boundary conditions also we have several possibilities for the boundary conditions. So, for example, the concentration at the surface can be specified. So, in this case, X in here is denoting the molar fractions or the molar ratio of A. Okay, so XA is equal XA naught, for example. And then the second possibility is that the mass flux at the surface can also be specified. For example, NAZ is equal NA naught. Okay. And then if the ratio of let's say you have a binary components, you have a binary system where you have a B and A components. So if the ratio of NBZ or a ratio to N of MBZ to NAZ is known, then it's equivalent to giving the concentration gradient. Okay. And then if, for example, there is a diffusion that occurs in the solid, it may happen that at the solid surface, the substance A is lost to a surrounding stream according to this relation. So this relationship in here resembles the Newton's law of cooling that you basically get from the heat transport. Okay, and then also the other possibility is that the rate of the chemical reactions at the surface can also be specified. So, for example, if the substance A disappears at the surface by a first order chemical reaction, then your NA naught is equal Kc multiplied by the concentration driving force, which in this case is Ca naught minus Cab. So Ca naught in here, generally naught is in here refers to the concentrations on the surface, and B in here is the concentrations of A in the bulk phase. Okay, and then the K1 double in here with subscripted is a first order chemical rate constant. And then once we go through all these concepts and all the mathematical equations for the mass transport, then the first example that we will discuss is the diffusion through a stagnant gas film. The notes has been given in your canvas, and I also already upload a lecture recording on this one. Okay, so we will go through these things again to refresh yourself, and then I will encourage you to go through the recording again to have a better idea, because understanding is sometimes a matter of repetition. If you basically read the materials and try to understand before my lecture, then when I go through in the lecture, then it will be easier for you to digest. So in this case, we have a diffusion through a stagnant gas film. Let's say we have a system in the form of given in the figure here, okay, where the one on the left-hand side is basically describing the systems, where you have a liquid A, and then on top of the liquid A, you basically have a diffusions of A, and then on the above the basically this beaker, you have a gas stream of A and B, or B is basically passing through the passing over the top of the beaker that fills in with the liquid A. So in this particular case, liquid A evaporates into the gas B. And the first assumption that is important in here is that we have some device that maintains the liquid level at Z equals Z1. So it is assumed that the liquid A evaporation is very, very, very small, so that when we solve this problem, the interface between the liquid A and the gas B basically does not change. So the heat of the liquid does not change. So we basically neglect the evaporations in here, or we basically just inspect the situations where it's not very, very far away from the situations where the liquid A start on evaporating, so that we don't have a significant evaporation. Okay, and then the right at the liquid gas interface, the gas phase concentration of A expressed as mole fraction is XA1. So you imagine that in the interface in here, you have the gas phase concentration of A, which is expressed in terms of the mole fraction, and it's equal to XA1. Okay, and then this concentration is in equilibrium with the liquid at the interface. And then this XA1 in here can be represented in terms of the vapor pressure of A divided by the total pressure. And again, in this case, we assume that A and B forms a ideal gas mixture, and that the solubility of gas A in liquid B is negligible. If we don't have this assumption, meaning that we may have some B, so basically dissolved in liquid A, but in this case, we assume that gas B is not soluble in liquid A, so that no gas B comes into the liquid phase. Okay, and then as we go through here, we read more. A stream of gas mixture AB of concentration XA2 flows slowly past the top of the tube. So you see this part in here where I derive on this right hand side is basically showing the concentration profile of X of A and the concentration profile of B. So at the top of the tube, the concentrations or the mole fractions of A is represented by XA2. And there will be a diffusion of A because then the mole fractions of A is decreasing from this point, from the interface between the liquid and the gas to the top of the tube. So there will be no mass transport if there is no difference in terms of the concentrations. Okay. And additional assumptions will be the entire system is kept at constant temperature and pressure. And gases A and B are also assumed to be ideal. And then in such a case, then there will be a net flow of gas upward from the gas-liquid interface. So there will be a net flow of gas from this point, going up to the top of the tube. And our main focus is only on this particular part of the system. We don't concern ourselves with the other part of the system. And then when you go into your momentum transport, you remember that when we go into the flow of a fluid through a circular tube, then you know that the velocity on the center is different with the velocity on the around the tube in here, or at the vicinity in the tube in here, where basically the velocity on the center is generally the highest. But in this case, we simply neglect that effect. Okay, we assume that there is no dependence of the z component of the velocity to the radial coordinate. So the velocity is considered uniform. Then how do we solve this problem? So we also limit ourselves into a steady state solution, meaning that the time is not playing a role in this particular problem. Okay, and then what we need to do in here is we need to go back into this first equation of equation 24. Equation 24 in here is the important equation to solve any particular problem. And we have to connect this equation 24 with the assumption that is given from the problem statement. Okay. The total or the combined molar flux is equal to the molecular flux contribution plus the convective flux contribution in here. For the problem of the mass transport, there is a bit of complication that arises in the convective flux, because you want to know the value of the NAZ, but in order for you to be able to get these equations into the explicit form, you need to be able to assume what is NBZ relations with NAZ in here. Okay, in order for you to be able to come up with the explicit form of these equations in here. So that normally will be the difference between the mass transport and the heat transport and the momentum transport is that you have a complications in here because the convective flux basically involving the total flow of the system, which in this case, if in the binary systems, it involves A and B flow. Okay, so in this particular scenario, we have assumption that basically a species B is stationary. It means a B does not move. Okay, what is implied by the B does not move is that its molar flux will be equal to 0. So in this case, we can take that this NBZ is equal to 0. Once this NBZ is equal to 0, then we have these particular expressions in here. And then you can move this XA and AZ into the left-hand side. Once you move it into the left-hand side, then you have this particular expressions of your molar flux of A in terms of the XA. You have this, once you notice this form come out in here where the XA and then 1 minus XA come out in here, you notice that you will be dealing a lot with the logarithmic natural form within your derivations and solutions. Okay, once you get these things in here, then what we can do is we make shell balance in here, which in this case is very easy. We just take the shell in here, okay, and then we took an AZ and an AZ plus delta Z in here, okay, and then so our shell balance is consisting of in minus out because there is no reactions in the system, okay. Then your molar flux, the mole flux in is basically the surface of your tube multiplied by the molar flux of your A inspected at Z minus surface area of your tube or the area of your tube multiplied by the molar flux of A inspected at Z plus delta Z. And then you divide by S multiplied by delta Z, and don't forget to put brackets in here, okay, because what I imply in here is minus for this whole term in here, okay. Once you take the limit of delta Z approaching 0, then what you will get is that the derivative of NAZ per dz is equal 0. So what happened when you integrate this one? When you integrate this one, you should be able to basically confirm that your NAZ is equal to constant. So basically your molar flux over these sections in here from the interface of the gas and gas to liquid, interface of the liquid A to gas to the top of the tube is basically constant. Okay, but then you want to derive the expressions for the dxa. So you substitute in your these expressions into here, and then again we have been taking assumption that the ideal gas is applicable to both A and B. So we can simply take out the C, and then we get this particular term in here, and then we integrate. This will be equal to C1, and from here to the bottom is mathematical, but the mathematical has to be clear. So for example, in here you want to substitute 1 minus x is equal y, so that you can establish a relationship that minus dxa is equal dy. Once you put this thing, then you can integrate in here, and then I want to replace the C1 by minus ln K1 and C2 by minus ln K2. You may ask why? Because I want to basically follow the same form that is suggested by the left-hand side in here. Okay, then once you put in ln K1 and ln K2, then we can do a operation in the logarithmic natural form, or the log operations in here. Now you see this red expressions in here. This is basically why this z ln K1 can be equal to ln K1 z raised to z in here. Okay, then this minus K1 minus K2 can be they can be merged into one term in here. Again, you need to go into your identity for the logarithmic natural operation in your calculus book, for example, that you have to refresh these things again. Okay, once we get that thing, then we can get 1 minus xa is equal k1 raised to z multiplied by k2. Then we are dealing with the simplest boundary conditions in here. At this particular interface in here, the xa will be equal to xa1, and then at the top of the tube in here, the xa will be equal to xa2. So this will be in accord with the first boundary condition, that is the first type of the boundary condition in my slides, basically. Okay. Once you get that thing, then you have this BC1 and BC2. Then you can substitute this into this particular equations. And then once you substitute this into the particular equation, then you can basically manipulate the mathematical form. Okay. And then in order for you to be able to get your K1. Once you get your K1, then you will be able to get your K2. Okay, this is basically all just mathematical expression, but the main important thing is you understand how to basically do this mathematical operation smoothly. Then once you get everything correctly sorted out, then you will get this particular expression, where it's basically 1 minus xa divided by 1 minus xa1 is equal 1 minus xa2 divided by 1 minus xa1 raised to z minus z1 divided by z2 minus z1. So your xa in here is a function of z. Okay, as you can see in the previous slide in here, we don't know this profile in the beginning. We will know this one at the end, but this profile also need to be illustrated in here to give you an idea. So in the beginning, we just make an assumption. We know that xa1 and xa2 is here, and then we know for xb1 in here is xb2 in here, but the real shape of the xa and xb as a function of z, we don't know in the beginning. We will know it later after we have this expression. So once we get this expression, then we will be able to get this particular profile of your mole fractions of a along the z direction. Okay. Then what else is the other quantity of interest after you get this xa? The other quantity of interest is the basically, what is that one? The rate of the mass transfer at the liquid gas interface. So this will rely on the dxa over dz. So then you want to go back again into your previous derivations to get this dxa. Dxa over dz is equal to C1 multiplied by 1 minus xa. So you go back here again, okay? And then we already know that the C1 is basically minus ln K1, because we take an assumption that C1 we replace by minus ln K1 in here. So we need to be consistent with the with what we took earlier. And once we put in everything, we know that our dxa has shape expressions like this. Okay. So and az in here, although it is constant from this part to this part, but dxa is not. Dxa over dz is a function of z. So as you can see in here, if dxa over dz is a constant, then you will have a straight line from xa1 to xa2. But this is not. That means that your slope varies with z. So that's the thing that is important, that basically you it basically gives you a strong relationship between the mathematical and the physical situations of your problem. Okay, and then the profile of gas B can be easily obtained by using xb minus 1xa. If you substitute in here, this nominator will be xb, this denominator in here will be xb1. Okay, and then if you want to obtain the average concentration of B in the region between Z1 and Z2, what you do is you integrate this term in here, and then you divide by the length from Z2 to Z1. All the thing that goes down from here in here is basically a mathematical operation that needs to be done in here. Some of you, when you do the assignment, it's not being tidy enough. You have to make it tidy enough as you go and basically convert this Z minus Z1 divided by Z2 minus Z1 into a dimensionless variable. then you need to connect the derivative for that particular variable to the particular variable that change within that dimensionless variables. Okay, if you do everything correctly in here, and this one in here is basically just giving you derivations of what happens if I want to integrate this particular term in here. Okay, so if I want to integrate this particular term in here, then I have to use this formula in here divided by the ln b, and xb2 divided by xb1 in here is a particular constant. It can be taken to be equal to basically b in here, because xb2 is fixed and then xb1 is fixed. It has a constant value basically. Okay, then if you continue everything, then you will get that xb average is equal to this. And in here, xb average is, we find that the xb average is basically the logarithmic mean of the terminal concentrations. Then by knowing the value, the expression for the xa over dz, then we can also know the value of the molar flux at z equal z1. So at this particular positions in here. In the same way, we basically derive this expression for xb with respect to z, and then substitute the value of z at z equal z1. If we do that thing, then we will get this one, and this will be the final value if expressed in terms of the logarithmic average of xb. These equations in here is quite useful to determine the gas diffusivities, and then it basically also gives rise to the development of the film models of mass transfer. The film models of mass transfer is illustrated in this particular figure in here, where we basically assume that there is a particular film thickness, where in which basically there is a significant concentration drop from the surface to the end of this particular film, and then outside of this particular film, then the xa does not change much with respect to the one in the bulk phase, basically because this one is assumed to be in turbulent flow. So there is a mixing in here, and then on this particular film thickness, we have a slowly moving gas film. This film, although this model is not physical, is physically unrealistic, it has been used by chemical engineers to in many derivations of their process, and especially those that are involving diffusion and reaction. So this one is basically the sample looks, the example that we discuss in here looks simple, but you need to try to spend a lot of times to understand here. When you understand these things, then you basically be able to appreciate the significance of the final mathematical expression that has been generated. Okay, so up to this point, do you have any questions, Chiewei, Fernando, or Chang Ying? Any questions on this particular mass transport? I think I have about four recordings video that discusses this mass transport for this week that I have just published, I think. Excuse me, I drink because I think I lose my sound a bit. If not, then I will move a little bit into the discussions of the problem 2 for assignment 2, to basically give you a bit of hints into how you should solve this particular problem. Okay, so the velocity in this particular problem, you are asked to get the time required to achieve 1% of the steady state velocity profile in a circular tube and rectangular channel. So the velocity profile for the transient change in velocity in a circular tube of radius r following the onset of flow is given by equation 8 for the circular tube, and for the rectangular channel it's given by equation number 9. Okay, so basically you have two terms in here. You have two terms in here. The first one, equation 8, is for the circular tube, and then the second one on equation 9 is for the rectangular channel. You are being asked to use equation 8 and 9, and it doesn't have to be to do it in MATLAB. You can do it in Excel or whatever other software that you want to use, and then you are being asked to plot the relation between the relative velocity and the normalized distance, and determine the time for the velocity profile in both the circular tube and the rectangular channel to reach within 1% of the steady state values. And then you are asked to explain why the result from the circular tube differs from that obtained for a rectangular channel. Then you need to look carefully into your velocity profile and equation expression in here. You know that for this equation 8 and equation 9, they are both a value of the coordinate, a particular coordinate, and time. So the first term in here, for example, is only dependent on the radius. The second term in here depends on the radius and the time. That's the same way with this equation 9 in here. The first term in here is equal to is basically depend on the y, and the second term in here depends on t. Okay. So in trying to solve this particular problem, people may ask, how did I basically eliminate this delta P, R, mu, and L in these equations? First thing first is that you need to basically think about what happens with this particular equation when it gets into a steady state. The steady state meaning that steady state refers to particular conditions when the time has become steady, so there will be no change in the particular behavior of your system. So that implies that the time becomes very, very, very large. So when your time becomes very large, then you need to check which term in your equation gets eliminated, or is it the same when the time becomes very, very, very large? Okay, so that's very, very, very important for you to see. And then for the first term in here, in equation 8 in here, for example, you have been given in your momentum transport, so you know what is the maximum velocity if you, let's say you are working with this first term of equation 8. So for example, if I want to ask you a questions in here, Chiewe, what will be the maximum velocity implied by the first term in equation 8 in here? Or Chiewe, Fernando, Changying, you want to answer me on this? Where is the velocity becomes maximum for this first term in equation 8? You can unmute your mic if you want. I mean, I want to interact with you because I want to help you, right? If I don't get interact with you, then how would you be able to let me help you to solve the problem, right? So in the problem of your circular tube in the momentum transport, where does the velocity becomes maximum? Anybody wants to answer? Hello? Fernando, Chiowe, Changying, are you there? No? Hello? So what you need to do is basically now you need to find out the maximum velocity. What is the expression for the maximum velocity? And then if you want, you can substitute this in terms of your maximum velocity and this one in terms of your maximum velocity. And then you need to be able to connect the transient with respect to the steady state, either by dividing these two expressions with your expression for the steady state. Okay, that is the hints that I can give to you. And then note that in here, for the first equation, equation 8 in here, the hint is given that the gvx is the Bessel function of order v, and then this lambda n are the roots of the Bessel function of the zero order. Okay, so what implies by this roots of this is that the value that if you substitute into this Bessel function of the zero order will make the function becomes 0. Okay, so if we go into the Bessel functions in here, for example, in the later part of your of the notes that I give in here, okay, you are given a table in here. The first table in here refers to the value that makes the zero order Bessel functions equal to 0, and they have this Bessel functions of the zero order is basically a periodic decaying function. So if you see that this g on x in here, this will go down from 1 to 0, and then periodically it will go up again and then go down again. So there are many values of the that will make this zero order Bessel function equals to 0. So at this particular position, for example 2 point something, and then this particular position, for example 5 point something, okay, and then blah 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 as you go and go again as with the increasing value of the x-axis. Okay, then this one is given like in this table: 2.4, 5.5, 8.6, 11.8, 14.9, 18.07. Okay, that keep on increasing. So in this particular assignment in here, it's given that this lambda n are the roots of these things in here. So if you want to solve it manually, you can use this particular value of the table. Or if you want to solve this one using MATLAB, then you can basically calculate. You can think about how to get these roots in MATLAB. Okay, because you are able to basically get the Bessel function, the Bessel value of a particular functions with this one. So for if n in here refers to the order of the Bessel function. So if you want to get the value for the zero order, then you just simply plug in 0 in here. Okay. Another hint that I can give to you is that you need to solve this particular problem better in terms of the dimensionless radius and the dimensionless time. What I mean by the dimensionless radius in here is that you think about these equations in here. It comes with this r over r. So r over r is the best dimensionless variables to solve for equation 8. Okay. On the other hand, the dimensionless t in here is referring to the kinematic viscosity multiplied by t divided by r square. So these particular variables in here will give the ideal dimensionless time that you may want to use to plot the velocity in terms of the dimensionless radius and the dimensionless time. On the other hand, for the rectangular channel, you don't deal with the radius because you are dealing with the y. But look in here. For example, you can basically express your dimensionless coordinate in terms of the y divided by h divided by 2. H in here refers to the thickness of your channel. Okay, and then for this rectangular channel, you are not dealing with the Bessel functions, but you are dealing with the much more straightforward terms such as this -1 raised to n, and then exponential of these terms in here. Likewise for your t in here, you can think about your t in terms of this dimensionless time. Okay, where basically you use h of divided by 2 as your characteristic thickness of your channel. Okay, so if you do solve this, if you manage to basically get the steady state velocity profile for equation 8 and equation 9, and you are able to basically figure out how to calculate this series in here and the series in here, which is quite straightforward if you are using a MATLAB, for example. For if you use a MATLAB in here, you can use this, for example, this for loop or this basically if statement in here. It's shown by 1.4.3 how you can basically code this the series, how to calculate the series values for this particular term in here. Okay, but it's not being limited to MATLAB. It can also be done using Excel or whatever software that is available. Okay, so far I have given you the hints that is important for you to solve a problem too. So I think I will conclude my drop sessions today to here, as I have been refreshing you a little bit on the mass transport, and then I also go into the problem to statement to give you an idea of how to solve these things. Okay, I will. I'm welcoming any questions from you if you have any. If not, then I think I will conclude the sessions here. Any questions, Fernando, Chewe, or Chang Ying? No? Okay, I hope it's being clear for you. Then if not clear from you, then you're welcome to contact me. But I have given you all the hints for the problem to statement. So I think you need to start working on that problem statement if you with your partner. Okay, if not, then I think I will conclude my sessions here. Okay, so thank you all for coming.